I did defense work. I've seen worse. That's not to minimize at all, Mr. Hoffman, what has happened here. Okay. You didn't perpetrate those 2 videos that I saw. You weren't the other person in the videos that's hidden and doing it in secret. That usually happens somewhere else. Happens in the U.S., happens in Eastern Europe. What you did was pour all that gasoline on those fires, because by viewing and sharing those images, you are stoking a problem that just seems to grow. And so you may not have been the other person in those videos. Your behavior fuels them in creating more videos, if that makes sense. Okay. And weirdly, it's a huge problem in Utah, despite maybe people who would think otherwise. I see it in youth your age who have early access to pornography by videos and cell phones and sharing it at school. And I see it at the 70-year-olds that I send to prison all the time who convert that into actually perpetrating as well. And so the range here is concerning, because you're starting out younger with more access than those old guys that I send to prison who are perpetrating in their adulthood and, with their grandkids and other people. So Mr. Stocks' position on this, I think, is well-founded to say that there's really zero tolerance from his perspective as the county attorney for this kind of behavior. The reality is a little different, and I think the PSI takes that into consideration in its recommendation. PSI is a tool that says, we took your age, we took your history, we took other people in your similar situation, and that's how we come up with this recommendation of jail time. I can't send everybody to prison who views child pornography. There aren't enough prisons. There aren't enough prisons for people who are severe, extreme viewers of child pornography, like you. There's just not enough room to view that. And, I can appreciate you saying that you've done a lot of work. I think it's like alcoholism, and you may not, but the compulsion to view child pornography, scientists would say, may or may not be an addiction. I think it definitely reorders your brain in a way that you seek out the dopamine that viewing that pornography gives you, and you continue to seek out more and more dopamine. And, like people who use a little heroin and then have to escalate that to get that same thing, I think people who view child pornography can, through their compulsion, rewire their brain in a way that you have to seek out bigger and greater and more serious things. I suspect this didn't start with child pornography for you. I suspect this started with age-appropriate adult, pornography. In my experience, working with offenders, that's where it starts. And it escalates to these more extreme kinds for some people, for whatever reason it did for you. And so, you're not the 75-year-old Mormon bishop that is doing this and perpetrating on kids and grandkids. You're not that person yet. I hope you never will be. Okay. But you're someone who had easy early access to something that I think is just terribly destructive for you and terribly, terribly destructive for those victims of those rapes that you were viewing in real time, or, videotape rapes of those children. I agree with Mr. Stocks as well on the point that the words don't capture it. Deputy Levitt gets a lot of credit for the work he does. Well, he probably doesn't get enough. I can't imagine doing that job. It would take the kind of resilience that I don't think most people have to do that job, do it objectively, and protect children the way that Deputy Levitt protected children in this case. So kudos to him for being able to do a job that most of us couldn't do. Um, the harm that viewing does, I don't think can be overstated because of how it fuels that fire for the people who are committing these kinds of, who are creating this kind of stuff. The other side of that, though, is you're young. You found yourself with too much time and too much access on your hands. You have parents who are obviously very supportive of you. I've read their letter. They're here today. They're well educated. They, I have no doubt, in their careers have seen the really negative consequences of this kind of stuff in real time with real victims. And they're here supporting you. You have an age-appropriate relationship, which is hard to come by for young men who fall down this rabbit hole. You have work that's keeping you more busy. I don't want to disrupt all of that stuff. The other thing is you have, I think, supportive parents and good attorneys who know how to do this job and got you into treatment early, and you've been receiving resources that you needed to help with this. But I do think it's a lifelong problem that you're facing. And much like alcoholism and heroin addiction, whether this is an addiction or not, I think it's a compulsion that nears that same level. It tells your brain that you need something more and you need something different, and children get raped because of men like you who encourage that kind of perpetrating. So I truly do hope that what your therapist says is true about you and the work that you've done. I commend you for the work you've done. It's not easy work. It's going to be lifelong work for you, though. I'm going to follow APMP's recommendation, largely, and I sentence you to up to 15 years in prison on each count. Those will run consecutively with each other. And the reason for the consecutive sentences is that the two videos that I saw meant that two separate children were raped at two separate times. Okay. And by fueling that fire, I think you put those victims and other victims at risk of the same thing happening over and over. And I'm not foolish enough to think that your arrest and your sentence is going to make any real difference in the world. I hope it makes a difference in this community by people who have seen what happened here and things. I'm going to suspend those sentences, though, and place you on probation with adult probation and parole for 48 months. The requirements of that probation are that you have a case action plan, that you complete a cognitive behavioral course as directed by APMP, that you have a mental health assessment and comply with the recommended treatment. APMP may be satisfied that the treatment you've already done meets that requirement. They may not. So if they think that you need other adjustments, they're going to make those recommendations. You'll need to participate in all sex offender treatment programs as directed by adult probation and parole. You will need to be employed full-time. If you, for some reason, aren't, you'll need to fill that time with appropriate business that APMP directs you to fill your time with. You'll have to have pro-social leisure activities as directed or at least recommended by APMP. I'm not going to impose a fine here because I think your treatment is expensive. I think it's more important. You're not to use or possess alcohol, any substance that's illegal in Utah, any prescription without a valid prescription. I don't see that as a problem for you. I see that as a place where some people turn when they don't get the dopamine that they normally get by these behaviors. You're to abide by all Group A sex offender group conditions while you're on probation. You're to register as required for any registries that APMP, the law requires or that APMP recommends. You're not to have any internet access without the approval of APMP. So what's the appropriate amount of jail time for someone who is obviously young and falls within this category? The Attorney General's office used to have a recommendation of 90 days in jail for child pornography cases. That's been adjusted somewhat. Now you have this recommendation that recommends 210 days with a midpoint of 105. You've served 112. Had you not done the work you've done, I probably wouldn't make the decision I'm making. I'm going to give you credit for the days that you served. Okay. So, does that mean I'm going easy on you here? I don't know.
Totally you don't.
I don't want you to engage in this kind of activity, obviously. You don't want to, I trust. Your parents don't want you to do that. There's enough here of a hammer hanging over your head, though, that if you violate the conditions of your probation, and it's a long probation, if you violate those conditions of your probation, I wouldn't hesitate at all to send you to prison if you've had the chance to correct your behavior and you don't take advantage of that opportunity. Okay? So credit for time served, 112 days is a lot of jail time. It's a lot of jail time for someone your age who comes from some level of privilege. And I trust that that's enough jail time to hammer home my view of all of this, which is consistent with Mr. Stocks's to a large degree. Practical reality here, though, is you got pornography access way too young. And unfortunately, it's such a rampant problem that not everybody can be treated as harshly as I think the crimes probably merit. So that's my decision. You have 30 days to appeal. If you disagree, you need to report to AP&P today, so your attorneys know where that's at. They can help direct you that direction. Just keep in mind, Mr. Hoffman, this is an opportunity for you to correct your behaviors, an opportunity to you to be an advocate for what is appropriate behavior for young men in your situation. You have more of a voice than some because you do come from a background of some privilege. You have parents who support you. You can be a voice for good. And if I see you again, I won't hesitate to send you to prison, and it's a long time. So don't mistake what is credit for the work you've done. Don't mistake that for a hesitation to impose the maximum sentence if I see you back.
Okay. We have one other issue, just the finding of no force or coercion. We had a stipulated agreement as part of the sentencing under Utah Code 77-41-105.
Yeah, I could not find force or coercion based on the evidence in this case for Mr. Hoffman's behavior so far. So.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Good luck, Mr. Hoffman.